All right, so we're back, and this week we are going to be taking a deep dive into the Google Ads newsletter for week 52 of 2024.
Oh, interesting.
It's been a an eventful week, I would say.
Yeah.
There are a lot of things that came out that we need to unpack and really try to understand, what Google is up to and how it impacts all of us advertisers.
Right.
So just to give a quick overview for those of you who haven't had a chance to read through the entire newsletter,
Mm-hmm.
we've got some conversion tracking headaches,
Yeah.
some sneaky policy updates, and even a few like little Easter eggs kind of hidden in plain sight.
Hey, fun.
Yeah, a little bit of a treasure hunt this week.
I love those.
So let's just dive right in.
Okay.
Let's start with something that's probably near and dear to every advertiser's heart.
Okay.
Inaccurate conversion tracking.
Yeah.
The sponsored partnership section of the newsletter really hit a nerve, I think, with a lot of people.
Right.
Highlighting how much this issue can actually impact your decisions.
For sure.
And even, like erode trust with clients.
Yeah, and for good reason. Like if you're underreporting conversions, you're essentially flying blind.
Right.
You might think a campaign is underperforming when in fact it's actually doing pretty well.
Yeah, it's like you're looking at a distorted picture of reality.
Exactly.
And you're making decisions based on bad data.
You're making the wrong decisions because of it.
Yeah, and that can lead to, missed opportunities for scaling.
Yep.
Optimizing your campaigns effectively.
It's a huge deal.
Makes you wonder how many potentially successful campaigns have been abandoned
Oh, yeah.
just because the data told the wrong story.
That's a great question. And that's why having a robust conversion tracking setup is absolutely essential.
Yeah, especially with the increasing complexity of server-side tracking these days.
For sure.
Speaking of which,
Mm-hmm.
they did mention Profit Metrics Conversion Booster as a potential solution.
Right.
Have you had a chance to look into that at all?
Yeah, I have, and it's definitely something that has caught my attention. The idea of simplifying server-side tracking without needing to, write a single line of code
Oh, wow.
is pretty appealing.
Yeah, especially for smaller teams or businesses who don't have, a dedicated team of developers.
Right.
Anything that can make life easier
Exactly.
and ensure your data is accurate.
Right.
Yeah,
Sign me up.
I'm all for it. All right, so moving on, let's talk about that policy update.
Right.
Google is getting stricter about ads that link to sites that have been penalized in search.
This is where things get interesting, I think.
Okay.
It seems like Google is really tightening its grip on the entire ecosystem, drawing a much clearer line between your website's performance in search and your ability to run ads.
So it's not enough to just focus on ad performance.
Right.
You really have to keep an eye on your website's health in Google search as well.
Exactly. You need to be checking your Google Search Console notifications regularly
Okay.
for any manual actions that have been taken against your site.
Got it.
Because now if your website gets penalized, your ads could get disapproved as well.
It almost feels like Google is saying, we're watching everything you do,
Right?
which I guess they are.
Big Brother Google.
Yeah, pretty much.
But it does raise some questions about, how much control Google is exerting
Yeah.
over the entire, digital advertising landscape.
And this kind of ties into our next point
Okay.
about Google's not so subtle push towards performance max. I mean, those top recommendations in the account
Yeah.
with the bright visuals, like
Yeah, they weren't trying to hide it.
they were not trying to be subtle about it at all.
Not at all.
Yeah,
So, performance maps can be a powerful tool,
sure.
especially for busy marketers who want to simplify campaign management.
Definitely.
But there are some potential pitfalls that we need to be aware of.
Yeah, and one that really stood out to me was that broad match keyword auto toggle.
Ooh, yeah.
When switching to conversion-based bidding,
Interesting.
it seems like Google might just flip your carefully chosen keywords to broad match without even asking.
Without even asking.
Yeah.
That's a little scary.
Yeah, right. So you're telling me that if I switch to conversion-based bidding, Google might suddenly open the floodgates to all this irrelevant traffic.
Sounds like a recipe for wasted ad spend.
And a lot of headaches.
Yeah, a lot of headaches for sure.
So what's the best way to protect ourselves against this?
Well, it definitely underscores the importance of regularly auditing your keywords,
Okay.
especially after making any changes to your bidding strategy. You need to be vigilant about catching any of those unintended broad match keywords that might have just slipped in there.
So basically, trust but verify.
Exactly.
Even when it comes to Google's recommendations.
Always.
All right, so let's move on to something a bit more positive.
Okay.
The brand new brand report
Oh, yeah.
in Google Ads.
This one is really interesting.
Yeah, this one has the potential to be a game changer,
For sure.
I think, for brand advertising.
I think so, too.
So finally, we have a way to get a consolidated view of reach and frequency data
Finally.
across multiple campaigns,
All in one place.
all in one place.
It's amazing.
I know, and it gets even better.
Yep.
They've also added audience filtering options.
Oh, wow.
So now you can really drill down into demographic performance,
That's good.
age, gender, other segments.
That is a goldmine of insights for brand advertisers
Sure.
who want to understand, how their campaigns are resonating with different audiences.
It just streamlines reporting so much
It does.
and can lead to, I think, much more informed decisions about budget allocation, targeting strategies.
For sure.
But it's not without its limitations, right?
Right.
I heard there are some pretty significant restrictions in terms of, which campaigns are included.
Yeah. So right now it has a limit of 10,000 campaigns
Okay.
and requires a minimum of 10,000 impressions to even show up.
Wow.
Plus, it doesn't include Search Performance Max or shopping campaigns yet.
So for larger advertisers with more complex account structures or those who are really heavily reliant on search or shopping,
No.
this report might not be as useful just yet.
Exactly. And there's also only a 92-day data window.
Okay.
It can be a bit limiting if you're trying to analyze long-term trends.
Right.
But, it's still a valuable tool for understanding audience reach and overlap,
Yeah.
which can help advertisers avoid wasted spend and really fine-tune their messaging
For sure.
for maximum impact.
All right. Now, this is my favorite part.
Let's hear it.
Time for the hidden gems section.
Oh, I love this part.
It's like a little Google Ads treasure hunt
It is.
where we uncover all those tiny, often overlooked changes that can actually have a big impact.
Exactly.
So this week we've got an extra extension for local service ads,
Interesting.
the mysterious reappearance of keyword-only ads.
What?
Ah.
Keyword-only ads are back.
It looks like it, at least for some people.
Wow.
The return of the trusty tag assistant. And a new glossary for Merchant Center.
Okay, there's a lot to unpack there.
right? Yeah.
What stood out to you the most?
Well, I'm particularly curious about that extra extension for local service ads.
Okay.
I mean, could it be another way to showcase reviews?
Maybe.
Or perhaps a direct booking option?
It's possible.
I feel like Google is constantly experimenting
For
with ways to enhance those ad formats and really streamline that customer journey.
sure.
I'm also intrigued by the return of keyword-only ads.
Really?
Yeah, it feels like a little bit of a throwback,
It does.
Given all this emphasis on audience targeting and automation,
Right.
it makes you wonder if Google is recognizing the limitations of relying solely on audience signals and is now offering advertisers more granular control over keyword-level bidding.
It could also be a way to cater to different advertiser preferences.
Right.
Not everyone is comfortable
Right.
relinquishing control to the machines.
Exactly. And that's why it's so important to stay informed about these seemingly small changes.
Yes,
They often reflect larger trends and shifts in Google's strategy,
for sure.
and understanding them can really give you a competitive edge.
100%.
All right, so let's delve into these mystery zone sightings a little bit.
Okay.
Keyword-only ads spotted by Anthony Higman and Sachin Patel.
I saw that.
What do you make of this? Is this Google kind of like backpedaling a little bit
Possibly.
on the push towards broad match and automation?
Google doesn't always get it right on the first try.
True.
They're constantly testing and iterating.
Yeah,
And sometimes features that were once phased out
right.
come back in a new and improved form.
So maybe we're seeing a resurgence of keyword-focused strategies
Maybe.
after all.
It's definitely something to watch closely.
Yeah.
If this trend continues, it could signal, a change in the balance of power between automation and manual control.
Interesting.
And who knows, it might even lead to the development of entirely new ad formats
Oh, wow.
that blend the best of both worlds.
Now that would be exciting.
It would be.
It's like this constant dance between innovation and advertiser needs.
I like that. It's a dance.
Speaking of coming back from the past,
Yeah.
let's talk about the triumphant return of Tag Assistant.
Oh, yes. Tag Assistant.
It feels like a long-lost friend coming back into our lives.
I know. It's such a valuable tool
It is.
for troubleshooting all those tracking issues.
Yes, and ensuring your tags are firing correctly.
Absolutely.
And let's be honest, a little bit of debugging can be quite satisfying.
Oh, yeah.
When you finally solve that problem.
So satisfying.
Now, this next one caught my eye, a new glossary for Merchant Center.
Mm.
Any thoughts on what might have prompted this addition?
I think it's a response to the growing complexity of the e-commerce landscape. With so many new features, acronyms, and technical terms,
Right.
it makes sense to have that kind of centralized resource that provides clear definitions
Yeah.
and explanations.
It's like a dictionary for the modern e-commerce marketer. Makes perfect sense.
It does.
Okay, before we get too deep into the world of e-commerce,
Okay.
let's circle back to that observation that really stumped me.
All right.
Those local ads
Okay.
without descriptions.
I know. What is going on there?
It's perplexing.
It is.
Are we witnessing a bug,
Maybe.
an experiment,
Possibly.
or perhaps a glimpse into the future of local ads?
Ooh, I like that.
It's a head-scratcher.
It is.
I'm leaning towards an experiment.
Okay.
Maybe they're testing the waters to see how those local ads perform without descriptive text.
Interesting.
It's certainly a bold move considering how much emphasis we usually place on crafting compelling ad copy.
Right. But maybe they're trying to make the ads more concise
Okay.
and mobile friendly.
Yeah.
Thinking about that limited screen real estate.
Yeah.
You gotta be as concise as possible.
Yeah, or maybe they're experimenting with more visual ad formats,
Okay.
relying more heavily on images and business names to capture attention.
That's an interesting thought. It would align with, that increasing dominance of mobile devices and those shrinking attention spans.
Yeah, it's like they're trying to adapt to the way people are actually consuming information these days.
Exactly.
All right, so let's wrap up this segment
Okay.
with a thought about Google's constant experimentation.
Mm-hmm.
It can be frustrating at times, right?
Yes, I'm
Like they're moving the goalposts without warning.
Right.
I understand the frustration,
Yeah.
but I think it's also important to remember that Google is constantly trying to improve the platform,
Right.
both for advertisers and for users.
For sure.
So I think instead of viewing it as a burden, we can embrace it as an opportunity
I like that.
to really hone our skills and stay ahead of the curve.
Exactly.
And who knows, maybe one day
Mhm.
we'll be the ones discovering those hidden gems
Yeah.
and sparking the next big Google Ads debate.
It could happen.
It could happen.
You never know.
All right, well, let's take a deep breath and get ready to tackle the next leg of our Google Ads news journey.
Sounds good. I'm ready. I'm ready when you are. I'm really curious to see what you think about some of these changes we've been talking about, especially that whole local ads without descriptions thing.
I know, right? Okay, so let's get into it. I'm still trying to wrap my head around those local ads without descriptions. It's such a departure from, what we've always been taught about writing effective ad copy.
It really is. It makes you wonder if Google is testing the waters for a more visual, less text-heavy approach to advertising, especially, as people's attention spans get shorter and shorter and mobile usage continues to rise. Maybe a concise headline and a striking image are all you need to grab attention these days.
That's a really interesting point. It would definitely be a significant shift, but it wouldn't be the first time Google has shaken things up.
Exactly, and that's what makes it so important to stay adaptable and open to experimentation. What worked yesterday might not work today, and we need to be ready to adjust our strategies accordingly.
Speaking of adjusting strategies, let's circle back to that bigger question we posed earlier. How might Google's increasing push towards automation and these specific campaign types affect the future of digital advertising? It's a complex question with no easy answers.
It really is. On the one hand, automation can free up so much time and resources, allowing marketers to focus on, higher level strategy and creative thinking. But on the other hand, it can also create a sense of dependency and potentially limit our control over those campaign nuances.
It feels like a delicate balancing act. We need to embrace the benefits of automation while remaining vigilant about its potential downsides.
I agree. It's about finding that sweet spot between human expertise and machine learning. We can't just blindly trust the algorithms we need to understand their strengths and weaknesses and use that knowledge to guide our decisions.
It's like learning to dance with the algorithms, right? You have to know the steps, but you also have to be able to improvise and adapt when the music changes.
That's a great analogy. It's a partnership, not a surrender.
So how do you think we can best prepare for this future of digital advertising, where automation plays an increasingly prominent role?
I think it starts with education and a willingness to learn. We need to stay informed about new features, updates, industry trends. But more importantly, we need to cultivate a mindset of continuous learning and experimentation.
That makes sense. We can't be afraid to test new approaches, analyze the results, and iterate based on what we learn.
Exactly. And we can't be afraid to ask questions and challenge assumptions. Even Google doesn't always get it right. And by sharing our observations and insights with the wider community, we can help shape the future of the platform.
Speaking of observations and insights, let's dive into those hidden gems a little deeper. That extra extension for local service ads. I'm really curious to see how that plays out. Could it be a game changer for local businesses?
It has the potential to be if it makes it easier for customers to book appointments or contact businesses directly from the ad. It could significantly improve conversion rates.
And the return of keyword-only ads. I'm curious to see how that impacts bidding strategies and overall campaign performance.
I am too. It'll be interesting to see if advertisers who adopt keyword-only ads see any significant differences in cost per click conversion rates or overall return on ad spend.
And let's not forget the return of the trusty Tag Assistant. I can't tell you how many times that tool has saved me from tracking nightmares.
It's a lifesaver, especially for those of us who spend a lot of time troubleshooting conversion tracking issues. It's like that reliable old wrench you always reach for when you need to fix something.
Exactly. And what about that new glossary for Merchant Center? I think that's a brilliant addition, especially for merchants who might be overwhelmed by all the technical jargon.
I agree. It's a great resource for demystifying some of the more complex aspects of e-commerce marketing and making the platform more accessible to a wider audience.
It's like a dictionary for the modern e-commerce marketer. Speaking of things that make life easier, let's go back to that observation about local ads without descriptions. It's still bugging me.
It is a head scratcher, isn't it?
Yeah.
My initial thought was a bug, but the fact that it's been observed by multiple people suggests it might be more intentional.
Right. It's almost like Google is saying, we're going to test this out and see what happens. Maybe they're experimenting with minimalist ad formats or trying to make local ads more concise and mobile friendly.
It's a bold move, considering how much emphasis is usually placed on writing compelling ad copy. But who knows? Maybe it will spark a whole new approach to local advertising.
Well, we'll definitely be keeping our eyes peeled to see how this develops. It just goes to show that even in a world of automation and algorithms, human observation and critical thinking are still incredibly important.
Absolutely. It's those eagle-eyed observers like Anthony Hickman, who often spot the subtle shifts and changes that signal bigger trends in the industry.
And by paying attention to those details, we can stay ahead of the curve and adapt our strategies accordingly. Now, let's shift gears for a moment and talk about something that's been on my mind lately. Google's increasing push towards specific campaign types like Performance Max.
It's an interesting development, isn't it? On the surface, it seems like a way to simplify campaign management and improve performance. But I can't help but wonder if it's also a way for Google to exert more control over the advertising process.
I've been thinking the same thing. The more we rely on these prepackaged campaign types, the less control we have over individual settings and optimizations.
It's like choosing from a menu instead of cooking a meal from scratch. You might get a decent result, but you're limited in terms of customization and creativity.
That's a good analogy, and it brings up an important point. How do we maintain a balance between leveraging the convenience of these predefined campaign types and retaining the flexibility and control we need to truly optimize performance?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? I think it comes down to carefully evaluating the pros and cons of each campaign type and choosing the one that best aligns with your specific goals and resources.
Right. We can't just jump on the bandwagon of every new campaign type that comes along. We need to be strategic and thoughtful about how we leverage these tools.
And we need to be willing to experiment and iterate.
Yeah.
Maybe Performance Max works great for some businesses, but not so well for others. The key is to find what works best for you and your unique circumstances.
Well said. Okay, before we wrap up this segment, I want to touch on something we discussed earlier, that broad match keyword auto toggle issue when switching to conversion-based bidding. It's still a bit unsettling, to be honest.
I understand your concern. It does feel like a bit of a betrayal of trust when you've carefully crafted your keyword lists and then Google decides to broaden your targeting without your explicit consent.
Exactly. It makes me wonder if we should be approaching conversion-based bidding with a little more caution these days.
I think caution is always a good approach. Regardless of the bidding strategy you choose, regularly auditing your keywords and monitoring your search term reports is essential for maintaining control over your targeting and avoiding unwanted surprises.
It's like having a security system for your campaigns. You might not be able to prevent every intrusion, but you can at least be alerted when something suspicious is happening.
That's a great way to put it.
All right, let's move on to our final thoughts on this week's Google Ads news. I have to say, I'm feeling a bit more optimistic after our discussion. It's easy to get caught up in the frustrations and anxieties of this ever-changing landscape, but there are also a lot of exciting developments happening.
I agree. It's a dynamic industry, and while there will always be challenges, there are also endless opportunities for innovation and growth.
I'm especially excited about the potential of that new brand report. I think it has the power to really transform the way brand advertisers measure and optimize their campaigns.
Me too. And with Google's continued investment in machine learning and automation, I'm optimistic that we'll see even more tools and features emerge that will help us streamline our workflows, improve performance, and ultimately achieve better results for our clients.
It's an exciting time to be in digital advertising, that's for sure.
It is. And I'm glad we could explore these topics together and share our insights with our listeners.
Okay, so as we wrap up this deep dive into the Google Ads news, I want to revisit that observation about local ads without descriptions. It's been the topic of a lot of speculation, and I'm curious to hear your final thoughts.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those changes that makes you go, what is Google up to now?
Right. Like, part of me thinks it might just be a glitch, but another part of me thinks it might be a deliberate experiment.
I think I'm leaning towards the experiment theory as well. It wouldn't be the first time that Google has tested out a really radical new approach. And who knows, maybe they're onto something.
What if this is like the start of a trend towards more visual, less text-heavy ads? It would certainly align with, the way people are consuming content these days. Quick glances, scrolling through feeds, short attention spans.
That's a really intriguing idea. Imagine a world where ads are more like those mini billboards, relying on strong visuals and brand recognition to really capture attention rather than, lengthy descriptions.
Yeah, it would be a huge shift in thinking, but it's not entirely outside the realm of possibility, especially as mobile usage continues to dominate.
Right. And let's not forget about the rise of video and interactive ad formats. Maybe text-based descriptions are simply becoming less relevant in a world where consumers are, more engaged with dynamic visuals and experiences.
Yeah, it's definitely something to watch closely. If this trend continues, it could have a major impact on how we approach ad creative and messaging.
Absolutely. It might even force us to rethink some of the fundamental principles of ad copywriting.
Which brings us back to that broader question that we've been kind of pondering this whole time. How will Google's ongoing evolution with, its emphasis on automation and these very specific campaign types, how will that shape the future of digital advertising?
That is the question that keeps many of us up at night.
It really does, because on the one hand, these changes are bringing about some incredible efficiencies and advancements. But on the other hand, it feels like we're relinquishing some of that control that we used to have.
Yeah, I think the key is to view it as a partnership, not a takeover. We need to learn how to work in tandem with these powerful tools, understanding their capabilities and their limitations, so we can leverage them effectively without sacrificing, our own strategic input.
It's about finding that sweet spot between automation and human expertise.
Exactly. And that requires all of us to stay informed, adaptable, and, willing to experiment.
So this week's newsletter has certainly given us a lot to think about, from, sneaky policy updates to hidden gems and the curious case of the missing descriptions. It's clear that Google is constantly pushing the boundaries.
It is, and that's ultimately a good thing, even if it comes with a few growing pains along the way.
So what's the biggest takeaway you hope our listeners glean from this deep dive?
I think the most important message is this. Stay curious. Don't be afraid to really dig deeper, ask those tough questions, and challenge assumptions. The world of digital advertising is constantly evolving, and those who embrace that change with a curious and adaptable mindset, those are the people who are going to thrive.
Well said. And on that note, we encourage all of you to check out the full Google Ads newsletter for week 52 of 2024. You'll find the link in the show notes, and who knows, maybe you'll uncover some hidden gems of your own.
Be sure to share what you find with us. We're always eager to hear from our listeners and learn from your experiences.
Until next time, happy advertising.